going to do something very special. We're going to be talking about the majesty of God. And I'm going to be sitting here at the table with a bunch of science books, and I'm going to show you some things that you'll find enlightening.
Speak up, you're not in a microphone.
No, that's right. And encouraging, because when we get discouraged about life and we get down the dumps or whatever, we have a God that is so great that he can help us out of anything. I'm going to ask God to bless the service. And what we're going to do is we've got some shots of the universe here that was taken by the Hubble telescope primarily. And this shows you, gives you an inkling of the greatness of God, of the majesty of God. And if God is so great to have created the universe, he can fix any problem we've got. Father in heaven, thank you for this opportunity here to have a service to worship and glorify you. We ask you to bless us in this attempt in Jesus' name. Amen. Now we'll show you, we'll start with this, and you'll be able to hear my voice as we go through it, I hope. The title of it here is Astrophysics and Creation, and she's going to go through the slides.
I hit the button, it didn't move.
Oh, now it's working, all right.
Yeah, it's just going slow.
Now, we used to think our galaxy was the universe, and they found out our galaxy was only one out of not hundreds, not thousands, but billions of galaxies. So we're going to take a look at.
I don't know why it's acting up.
Computers are wonderful things. They still haven't worked out the bugs yet.
Well, I think it was fine, and now it's not fine, and
Yeah. But anyway, while the computer is deciding whether it wants to work today or not, we got some beautiful pictures here. The universe is supposedly 13.7, between 13.7 and 13.8 billion years old, which means that it is finite in age, and as big as it is, it's 1 septillion miles across from one end to the other, the diameter of the universe. And the question is, evolutionists they have no answer to this. Where did the universe come from? And scientists say, well, we know it started. We know it hasn't always existed. And so all these pictures that we hope to see here in a few minutes show you pictures of galaxies, nebulae, all these things that God created. The question is, if evolution is true and there is no God, where'd all that come from? And we're going to listen to what some of the scientists had to say.
there's a slide. And it was fine when we ran it during class Monday.
Yeah, you can't see it, but this is the Hercules cluster, which is a small galaxy that looks just like a cluster of stars. Keep going. And that is a blue string there. Keep going.
This is crazy. It was fine.
Oh man, we've got some beautiful pictures to show you today.
For some reason, it's saying the pictures can't be displayed, and I don't know why.
Anyway, while we're waiting to see if we can get that
Let's
to
see
work.
if I can close it and open it back. There's your exam, Ethel.
Yeah, there's your exam. You have basically two great groups of scientists. You have people who actually believe there is a God. They may not be Christians, but they believe there is a God. And then you have evolutionists who say, no, there is no God. Now, Albert Einstein, who was a genius, said that if you believe in a personal God, that's childish foolishness. Those were his words, childish foolishness. He did not believe in a personal God. Now, he had a tremendous IQ. He was a genius. At least other geniuses say he was a genius, and that he was one of the greatest geniuses of the 20th century. And yet he didn't believe in God. How could a man that smart not believe in God when we're going to see all that we can see today?
It's opening.
It's opening? Okay.
I'm hoping it'll see. It's opening.
Okay, hopefully this will work. Before I go any further, does anybody here have any thoughts or questions that you want to ask about this before we get into it? Or maybe something I can specifically hopefully.
I can't see the questions online. I didn't bring my phone over here.
I mean, by the way, we're glad to have Rachel back. She's been in New Zealand, and she didn't fall off the earth, and that's down at the bottom. I'm so glad she didn't fall off the earth. We've got a fellow that is a graduate who lives down there now. He used to live here, and his wife is from New Zealand. He moved down there.
Okay, now maybe it'll work. It looks like it might
Good.
work.
And I joke with him sometimes when we're writing emails back and forth about when I wondered if he'd fallen off the earth yet. Now, God is so great. I don't get upset. Don't be offended by my insulting you this morning, but I'm going to insult you. Ain't none of us got any sense to understand the greatness of God. You may have a college degree, but you still don't even begin to understand how great God is.
Okay, let's see if I can.
Here's the Hercules cluster. Now, those stars around it are actually in our Milky Way galaxy. And so there are so many stars in our own Milky Way galaxy, thank you for finding that when we look at other galaxies, these other stars look like, well, they're not in any galaxy. They're in ours. But we have to look through our galaxy to see them. So the Hercules cluster, as they call it, why they named it that, I don't know. Most of our stars and constellations are named after pagan gods. So is the 25th of December, named after Saturn, a pagan god. But anyway, I forget how many light years away this is. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm not sure which one this is. This might be M51. There's so many galaxies out there, they give them numbers. Now, most galaxies, this is called a spiral galaxy, and you can see why they call it a spiral galaxy. And apparently, it is rotating in that same direction, like a low pressure in our atmosphere. When the universe was created, it went bang, just like that, as an explosion. So these galaxies are moving away from us, and they're red shifted in the line of spectra. They're red shifted, and they're moving away. But you see how they're moving, they're rotating as well. They're not only moving out from us, they're rotating. Everything is moving. Now, Einstein, the great genius, said, no, I believe in the steady state theory. Everything just stays the same. It's been that way for eternity. And in 1929, Edwin Hubble came along and said, no, you see those galaxies out there, Einstein? They're moving away from us, which means there had been a big bang at the beginning. There's an explosion. So that means it's not steady state. Now, when you look up at the clouds, they look like they're just sitting there. They're not moving. But go back out 15 minutes later, go in the house, come back out, and you'll see the clouds have moved. They're so far away, they look steady state, but they're moving, which means the universe has not always existed. Let's go to the next one. Now, these are not stars. There may be a few mixed in, but most of those, you see how they're not just a little round. Some of them are
Sparkly?
not sparkly, but they're prolongated. Elongated. That's a galaxy. That's not a star. See some of these others? These are galaxies. Now, some years ago, I used to subscribe to science news is what I subscribe to. And they took an area of our sky at night, 1/2000th of our sky, they couldn't find any stars in it. They thought, this is an empty space. So they pointed a telescope to it, and they found out, they didn't see any stars, but they saw galaxies like that. So they started counting the galaxies. And a year went by, and they still weren't through. And another year went by, another year. 10 years later, they finally counted all the galaxies in 1/2000th of the night sky, and it came out to be 2 billion galaxies in that little empty space. Well, they multiplied that times 2,000, and they said that there are a minimum of 100 billion galaxies. Kind of get an idea of the majesty of God. Let's go to the next slide. This is the Milky Way, and the reason it's bent like that is because they're using a wide-angle lens, and also because of the You see how bright it is? It looks like it's in the daytime. That's because they used a long exposure, so that has to do with the photography itself. But that's the Milky Way. Now let me explain what the Milky Way is. Take a plate, like, all right, this is not a plate, but let's say this is a plate. Here's the flat side of the plate. When you see the thin part, you're looking this way. But when you see the thick part, you're looking through all of this, you see? And the Milky Way is this part right here. You can see above it, you can see below it, but when it looks real thick, it's because you're looking through the thickness. Where are we in the galaxy? We are right at the edge of the Milky Way. Go ahead and go to the next one. Now, this is something that every single person ought to know from the time you're a child. If you ever get lost at night, you want to know which direction to go, look for the Big Dipper, take the bottom of the dipper, the outside stars, make a straight line from the bottom to the top, go about, 30 degrees. And you'll see a faint star. It's not bright. It's a faint star. That's the North Star. That way you know north and south. Now, let me ask you something. Do you think that just happened by accident? First of all, out of all the constellations, everybody knows what a dipper is. Anybody, of all cultures, people in India, China, Africa, Asia, everywhere in the world, everybody knows what a dipper is. It's what you drink water out of. So God took something that everybody knew what it was, and he used that to teach us north and south. And if you're at evolutionists, you say, no, that happened by accident. You got more faith than I got. One night, I was on my way home. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was coming home from Fayetteville. And it was, they told me, of course, Fayetteville is east of here, so they said, just go west, and you'll go to Kannapolis. So I went west. And suddenly, I came to a stop sign way out in the country. No stores, no gas stations to ask for directions. I come to a stop sign, and I had to either turn right or go left, and I didn't know which way to go. There were no other cars around, so I just turned off my headlights, got out of the car, and waited till my eyes adjusted to the night sky. I found the Big Dipper, I found the North Star, I knew which way was east and west. I turned left and went right to Kannapolis. So everybody ought to know this. Everybody ought to know this.
But how did you know which way was east and west?
Well, if that way is north, this way has to be south. So if you go 90 degrees, see that straight line there? From where it says X and 4X, that straight line, if you go exactly 90 degrees to the right, that's east. If you go 90 degrees to the left, that's west. Make sense? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now you see those little elongated lines? Again, you got galaxies. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, there's a star. How did that get in there? All right, let's go to the next one. This is the Big Dipper again. And the reason it looks here, in this case, elongated is because you see how bright the ground is? They took a long exposure, and of course the Earth is moving. All right, let's go to the next one. And these are light years away. Look how beautiful that is. And God made all that. John 1 verse 3 says, everything that was made by Jesus. The one who died on the cross for you made all those stars. Those stars look very close together, but if you were to go to any one of those stars and look out at the rest of the universe, it'll look like that to you. Because all those stars are light years apart from each other. Go ahead and go to the next one. The Carina Nebula. Now, those colors were not added. Those are the actual colors that astronomers see through a telescope. And the reason being is because of the different frequencies of light against those clouds. We'll go to the next one. This is where you are. I see that's actually, I think that's Andromeda, but what, because you see that little galaxy below it. But they think our galaxy looks like an Andromeda. So if that was our galaxy, we would be at the edge. And according to astronomers, if we were any closer in, life could not survive. God put us exactly where we have to be to survive. All right, go to the next one. That's how beautiful. The book of Hebrews says we're going to inherit all that one day. We're not going to the third heaven to inherit a mansion and sit there and play a harp all day. I've never played a harp. Have any of you ever played a harp? Well, you're not ready for heaven then. Because that's what they say. No, this is what we're going to inherit. This is the eternal inheritance of the saints. We're going to get the universe. Go ahead and go to the next one, please. Isn't that beautiful, though?
We typed the gases up there in the corner.
Typed it.
Yeah, well, the word gases is up there in the corner.
In the
What I was
left
gonna
corner?
say is that it could have been gases
That's the first time I've ever noticed that on there.
Oh yeah, it's in dark letters.
I don't, maybe we didn't put that there.
Yeah, those are gases that might, due to gravitational contraction, might be actually becoming galaxies given enough time. Go ahead. Hercules again. And that bright star in the right, that's in our galaxy, by the way. Go ahead.
Ooh, that's so cool.
This was taken by the Hubble telescope. This is called the, let's see, the Eagle, because it looks like one. Hey, come in, good to see you. It looks like one. Now, we never saw that until they put the Hubble telescope up there. But that, we don't know how big that is really. But it's so huge, it looks just like a cloud in our sky in the daytime. And you know, if the cloud is way out there, you can stand there and look at that cloud and it's not moving. But like I said, 15 minutes later, you walk outside again and you'll notice it's moved. Well, in a few million years, you'll notice that that's moved because it is moving. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Now you see where the Hercules cluster is in relation to these other stars. See, it's in the Hercules constellation. It's called M13. Go ahead and go to the next one. I'm not exactly sure what this part of the galaxy is, but all of this, again, is the majesty of God. Go ahead and go to the next one. Now here, these are not stars. These are galaxies. You see, they look kind of fuzzy. They're galaxies. And our God made all that. Now, this still doesn't tell you how great God is. But could you make a galaxy? He made billions. I'm going to insult your intelligence once more. None of you in here could even make a BB by yourself. God didn't have a machine to make these things. God in his great power made them. You can't even make a BB unless you had a factory to make them. So God made all that, and these are all galaxies. And Hebrews tells us everything that God made, he made it for us. One day, you and I are going to fly out there. You'll say, but Keith, it'd take us millions of years to explore all that. How long is everlasting life? You have forever. Y'all better learn to love one another. You're going to be with each other for all eternity. Yeah. All right, go to the next one. That looks like Hercules again, but I'm not sure if that is or not. Go ahead and go to the next one. Again, we don't even know how many billions of stars there are. They guess 100 to 200 in our galaxy. The most conservative estimate is 100 billion. Go ahead. Now you can see this was taken at night, and yet you see the landscape. It looks like it was in the daytime. Again, that's because of the long exposure due to the camera. And the reason a lot of that looks not round, it looks a little bit elongated, is because they had an open aperture. Depth of field was different. That's the reason it looks that way. Let's go to the next one. It's because of the photography. Now, could you count the stars just in that one picture there? I mean, if I gave you an assignment, count those stars, and you better come up with the right number, or you get an F.
I'll go ahead and take the F.
Just take the F, don't worry about it. Because if you start at one corner and just went up and down, it'd take you weeks and weeks and weeks, if not months, and about halfway through, you just give up, because that's too many. Now, that's just in one camera view. That's just part of the universe. That's just the part we can see. How much more is there out there that we don't know about? Let's go to the next one. You want to count that one instead?
No.
Our God is a pretty great God. Isn't it amazing when people say, I've heard preachers say, well, God can't do such and such. Don't tell me he can't do something. He may choose not to, but God can do anything. And when you need healing, remember, God can do anything. Go to the next one. Another picture of the gas nebulas, but which one I don't know. Go ahead and go to the next one. Orion constellation. Now, this is probably the pouch in Orion's belt. If you've never seen it, take a pair of binoculars or even telescope and go out and look at the pouch of Orion's belt. It's beautiful, just like that. And you'll see that. And I've got a 7-power pair of binoculars, and I'll go out at night. Now, you can see Orion in the wintertime. That's the best time to see Orion's belt. It's the 3 stars. And about, I don't know, 30 or so degrees, 30, maybe 45 degrees east of Orion, you'll see this cluster of stars called the Pleiades. My grandpa used to call it the 7 sisters. There's 7 major stars in the Pleiades. I mean, something's very easy to see, but you see it and you see it in wintertime. So tonight would be a good time for you to take your binoculars out and see if you can find that tonight. Go ahead. Now there's Orion. See the 3 stars? That's Orion's belt. Now that pouch is that little cluster below it. Let me go up here and point it out to you. Here's the belt. Here's the pouch that we were just looking at. Here is Rigel and Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse is many, many, many times bigger than our sun. Rigel is something like 12 light years away. So if you were traveling at the speed of light, take you 12 years just to get there. At least by Earth time. All right, let's go to the next one. And you can see that tonight. That's probably the pouch again. All right,
I
so-
usually can see Orion the easiest. Like, I can recognize it better than the Big Dipper.
Yeah,
already.
it's easy. It's easy to find. Now, this is called the Sombrero Galaxy primarily because where it's situated, the galaxies aren't all the same angle toward us. This one is at a 90-degree angle toward us. So we're seeing through the edge. And notice the edge is darker than the middle. And that's because the stars are so thick. The light from that galaxy it's not as bright on the outer part of the galaxy as it is on the inner part. Does that make sense? So a sombrero is like a hat. And so they named it the Sombrero Galaxy. And that's light years, many, many light years away. Okay, you can go to the next one. Now, who wants to count the stars there? And I'll give you an A.
1, 2, 3, 4, very many.
Very many. That's it. And just think, Jesus created that.
That makes you think of the hairs on our heads. He knows every one of the hairs on our head.
Yeah.
You don't have to count as hard for me anymore.
Yeah, there's so many hairs on our head, but you know what? That's probably more stars than anybody's got here, I would think. Go ahead and go to the next one. I don't know what that is, but that's another part of our night sky that you and I don't see normally. And one of the reasons we don't see that, if you live in the Charlotte area, there's so many lights, Charlotte, Concord, and Kannapolis, so many lights that you maybe go out and see maybe a couple of dozen stars. When I lived in the Los Angeles area, I lived in Pasadena for about a year, and you might see 2 stars, maybe 2. But we had a man here who used to live, he's an older man, he's passed away now, but he lived in Montana. He said, you can go out there at night where there's no city lights at all. He said, and you just see just thousands and thousands of stars. He said, Keith, you ought to go out to the Continental Divide. Man, the sky just lights up with stars. Now you might say, how many millions can you see? With your naked eye, with perfect vision, without glasses, you can see between 4,000 to 6,000 stars. That's all. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make a comment, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So when I was in New Zealand, I was looking for the Southern Lights because it's the Southern Hemisphere, and wasn't able to see them, but they had like a special thing that you could do a stargazing thing where Mount Cook is, which is their tallest mountain. And they said that the Mount Cook area with all the mountains surrounding it was the best part of New Zealand to view stars. It was the darkest area.
Wow.
And So they were talking about like there was going to be a meteor kind of shower, like where you'd be able to see the dust and of the meteor and different things. But they said it was best viewable after midnight, and I was so tired I couldn't stay up that late. And we also didn't do the stargazing, which would have been cool though. But what I did try to do was step away from the hotel lights in the parking lot and look up at the sky, and it was like maybe 10 o'clock. And I did see Orion's belt, but
You could see Orion's belt?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's their summertime there, but I could still see Orion.
Because you're pretty close to the bottom of the world.
But I didn't see a lot of stars as I was thinking. I was hoping I would, since they did say it was the darkest area.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. I was telling her a while ago that depending on the season of the year, you know, the Earth doesn't set like this. It sits at 23.5 degrees. And if it's sitting like this, then that would be summertime. And New Zealand is right smack dab on the very bottom of the Earth. Smack dab. Go ahead. Go to the next one.
Well. There we go.
That is Andromeda. Now that is our nearest galaxy. It is 2.54 million light years away. Now what is different about Andromeda? That's our nearest galaxy. So get in your spaceship, start now, and you need to go the speed of light. It's going to take you 2.5 million years to get there. But what is really unique about this galaxy is it's blue shifted in the light spectrum, which means one thing. Rather than, you know, all the galaxies are moving away from each other, there are a handful out there in the universe that are actually moving towards another galaxy. They're all spreading out like this. This one, though, is actually moving toward the Milky Way and will collide with us in about, you know, a couple of million years. Don't worry, you won't have to worry about that. You'll have eternal life, but it won't bother you. Might even be fun to watch. As spread out as the stars are, when that galaxy collides with ours, they'll just go through each other like that when we collide with another star. All right, go ahead. Is that it?
No.
Oh, that is M51 for sure. An astronomer named Majesty back in the 1800s began to catalog all these various galaxies. Not the 1800s. Was it 1800s? I guess it was. And he just named them by numbers. That's number 51 there. And that's one of the prettiest ones. Go ahead and go to the next one. Billions of stars. They think it's got 100 billion in it. Go ahead.
I'd have hit it. And these last few slides, I think, transition slower.
That looks like, I'm not sure if that's the famous nova where it's exploding outward or not. Go ahead and go to the next one. They say the average galaxy has 100 billion. Of course, they're estimating. Nobody's ever counted them. Our galaxy is considered average. We have 100 billion. But they say some galaxies are smaller, but some are even bigger. Some even have 1 trillion stars in them. But if you average it out, it comes to about 100 billion. So now, that one, I don't know. Do you see Orion there? I think
I see a cluster.
that cluster is Pleiades.
Oh, that like looks like a no. It doesn't look like the Seven Sisters.
Well,
I mean at the top.
at the top right, that looks like it's a cluster. It's probably Pleiades. And if that's the case, then Orion would be off the screen, be to the right. All right, go to the next one. More galaxies. Each of those are galaxies. Now, I want you to do the math in your head. 100 billion stars times 100 billion galaxies. How many stars is that? Quick. What's the answer? That's a lot of stars.
Yeah.
The answer is a bunch. Okay, let's go to the next one. And God made all that. This is a picture at sundown, just how beautiful our Earth is. Look at the clouds and how pretty it is. Go ahead and go to the next one. That's sunset in Georgia there. I think that was the last
I think
one.
it was. I think we ended with that.
Okay, all right. If you'll please turn on the lights, or somebody turn on the lights. Somebody can. And that's our introduction. Why are all these books I've got up here? Well, and we don't have time for me to do all that I wanted to do, but let me just show you a few. I have read every page of this book. It's 735 pages of text. This is a contemporary college physics textbook. And believe it or not, I read this every day. It only took me 6 weeks to read the whole book. Because I went through it, I underlined it, I went through it thoroughly. And of course, it talks about Newton and so on, so much. And again, when you study all this, you go through it and you ask questions like, well, how did all this get started? How did all of it get started? I mean, I've read through this so much, the pages are now coming out. But I went through these books. You see where I highlighted them, I underlined them, and I make notes in the margin. Newton's laws of physics and so on. And you know, here's the thing. Have you ever met an atheist? Anybody here ever met an atheist?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Well, the thing about atheists are people that have not read books like this. If you ask an atheist, the last one I talked to, and I just talked to him online, he was only 20 years old. It took me years to read these books. How many books had he read? He'd just gotten out of high school. He'd read a few books in high school. But he didn't know even a fraction of what I knew. And after reading all these things, I believe in God. People who are atheists are people that are pretty ignorant. Here was my college textbook in college astronomy. We studied astrophysics, exploration of the universe. I've gone through this thing, of course, and highlighted the important parts about astrophysics. And it's fascinating stuff. Oh man, I mean, tremendously fascinating. I'm just going to show you a little bit. Here's one I went through, and that's Einstein, that's Max Planck there. The 30 years that shook physics. Now, the one who wrote this was George Gamow. He was a major astronomer back in the 1950s. And of course, we've learned a whole lot more since he came along. Here's one called About Time, Einstein's Unfinished Revolution. Paul Davies is not a Christian, but some of the stuff he writes, it sounds like he's coming along. It does, because he sees there was a Big Bang creation. And, you know, it's interesting. Sometimes Christians make fun of the term Big Bang. I saw a sign some years ago, somebody was putting up these signboards along the highway, and supposedly God is talking to us. And one of them's, you know, it's just a white signboard with black letters. And one of them said, "A Big Bang? You got to be kidding," signed God. Well, what a lot of people don't understand is evolution says everything gradually evolved. What scientists are now saying is that's not what happened. The entire universe did not exist. And then in a fraction of a second later, everything existed. They call it the creation event. The term Big Bang, that term was intended to be humorous. And guess who came up with it? I believe it was Fred Hoyle, but it was an evolutionist who came up with it. And he was making fun of the idea that the entire universe did not exist, and then suddenly, bang, it did. Now, what does that sound like to you? Creation. Einstein's Unfinished Revolution. And I'm not going to spend any time with all this because we don't have time. But again, when you go through books like this and read it, you think, how could there not be a God? There would have to be a God. Here's a book here. I've gone through this thing and underlined just about every single page of it. The Evolution of Physics. And this was written by Albert Einstein and Leopold Imfeld. So I had to read that for sure. Oh, and I forgot to bring the other book written by Einstein. It's a little red book, and I forgot to bring that today. But he wrote that in 1916. I found that book at the Smithsonian Institution. I had to buy it. And I wanted to understand about light and various things. And I read Einstein's book, and I couldn't understand it, so I put it down. I picked it up a second time. I read it a second time. I didn't understand it. I picked it up the third time and I understood some of it. It wasn't until after I read it 4 times I finally began to understand it. And in order to do that, I had to get, and that's another book I didn't bring. There's a number of books I didn't bring today. One book is called Trigonometry for Dummies. And the only reason I bought that book was because I wanted to understand Einstein's theory, thank you, a little better, because I wanted to understand the math of it. And I should have got one called Trigonometry for Idiots because it was difficult. But, okay, but it helped me to understand where Einstein was coming from. But the evolution of physics, man, this is an interesting book. And the other book, which I didn't bring, was written by Einstein, and it's fascinating stuff. In fact, there was a question I had for many years about light. Now, I don't want to bore you with all that because I probably will. But let me just tell you one thing about it. I wondered if you were going the speed of light and you were in a spaceship and you stuck your hand out the window of your spaceship and you turned on your flashlight, and that flashlight is going to shoot light out at the speed of light, right? So would the speed of light actually be traveling fast, twice the speed of light? And I always wondered about that, and I asked a number of people, and Einstein finally answered that in his book. But the first time I read it, I didn't understand it. Okay, what's the question?
Is God the Father greater than Christ because he planned the universe and Christ created it?
That's an interesting question. Is God the Father greater? He is greater in authority. We know that. I think Jesus said that the Father is greater than I. He is greater in authority. Is he greater in power? We don't know. The Bible doesn't say, and I don't want to speak where the Bible doesn't say. But in Genesis 1:26, God said, let us, and the word for God there is Elohim, meaning more than one, the Godhead. More than one person of the Godhead. The Godhead said, let us. Well, God the Father obviously is directing his Son. How do we know that? Because Ephesians 3:9 says, God created all things, the last 3 words, by Jesus Christ. So God the Father made everything. All that we just saw, God the Father designed it, created it, came up with the idea. He tells his Son, now you go make it. So, you know, it'd be kind of, that's a hypothetical question with a hypothetical answer. Anybody else got any questions along that line? Good, that's a good question.
Did Jesus say, I believe it's, I know it's in John, but I think it's John 14. Didn't he say that if you know my Father, you know me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could tell you, if you know me, you know my Father.
Yeah.
Because my Father was very much like me, or I'm like him.
But they was asking, are you God, or, you know, where's
Yeah.
the Father? Yeah.
Yeah. To know the Father, in fact, he told Philip, he said, if you sing me, you sing the Father. Because they look alike, they talk alike, they think alike. To know what God the Father is like, look at Jesus. And we don't know what physically they look like. But we do know what they're like in character. Readable relativity. I didn't find it all that readable. As you can see, I made marks and underlines in it, but I didn't find all that readable. And then an atheist comes along and says, I don't believe in God. He's never read half these books. Beyond Creation Science. Scientific creationism. Some of these were written by Christians. As far as I know, George Gamow never was a Christian. He wrote this in the 1950s, the creation of the universe. He's not a Christian, and I don't know about what he's an atheist, but notice he uses the term the creation of the universe because it was created. But of course, if there is no God, my question is, how did it get created? George Gamow wrote this also, The Birth and Death of the Sun. I've read this. Interesting. Here's one, Why the Universe is the Way It Is. Well, why is it the way it is? Because God made it that way. Here's one, The God Equation. I don't recognize the author, but I went through that and underlined it too, as you can see. Now, this man here, no, not this one, the other guy. There's a fella here, I actually met this fella. I read his book, and who am I to disagree with an astrophysicist? But I disagreed with him. Starlight and Time, Solving the Puzzle of Distant Starlight in a Young Universe. Dr. Russell Humphreys, PhD. And I read that book and I said, that's wrong. And I'm not a scientist, but I disagreed with him. I met him, got his autograph and everything. And to Keith. And so I'm glad I got his book. I had to buy it, but he autographed it. the reason I disagreed with him, he is a Christian and he tried to make the whole universe to be no older than 6,000 years. But if it took 1 billion years for the light to reach us from the far ends of the universe, then the universe itself has to be several billion years old, not 6,000. So what I read just didn't make any sense scientifically. And do you know he eventually recounted this and said he was wrong? The romance of the atom, this goes back a long way because they were studying the atom in the early 20th century. I've read that. Taking back astronomy. The next time you meet an atheist, ask him one question. How many books have you read on astrophysics? Just count. Go home and count them and come back and tell me how many you've got in your library. I dare say he doesn't have one. Stephen Hawking, he's the Einstein of our generation. He just passed away a few years ago. Black holes and baby universes. He was an atheist. How did he get his PhD? Shocking. He earned his PhD by writing a dissertation proving that the universe was created. He proved it. And you go see, I've marked this all up thoroughly. And his best one, which I came off without, is called A Brief History of Time. If you're interested in anything about astronomy, get a hold of that book. I bought it at Walden Bookstores, and I don't have it here today. But Stephen Hawking was an absolute genius.
Wasn't he an atheist?
He was an atheist. And yet he won his PhD in astronomy or in astrophysics by proving that the universe was created through a Big Bang. What I was telling you a while ago was evolution says everything happened very gradually. The Big Bang says no, it doesn't. So I believe it was Fred Hoyle. He was an evolutionist. I think it was Fred Hoyle who came up with the term Big Bang. And he was making fun of it. And so in 1929, when Hubble said that everything was created in an instant of time, he said, you mean to tell me that there was nothing in existence? And I was right, nothing. And then suddenly there was this big bang and everything was created? Yep, that's right. And he was laughing at it. And the term Big Bang stuck. Well, when Christians make fun of it, they don't realize it. They think they're making fun of evolution. Evolution is over here, the Big Bang's over there. They're two complete opposite things. Time, A Traveler's Guide. Interesting. And I've gone through this and underlined it. Wrinkles in Time. I went through this thoroughly. This talks about the cosmic background radiation. If there was a Big Bang explosion, there should be a residue of light. And on your old TV sets, which none of you have, you had an antenna. And if you turned down, if you went to a station between the stations of static, some of you are too young to remember that, some of you remember that.
I remember.
You remember? There was just static. And what you do, if you turn the brightness down, what little bit you see left is the remnant that's left over from the Big Bang. You're actually seeing the light from the Big Bang. Wow. You learn a lot of stuff reading these books. But the wrinkles, the microwave background radiation is the residue that's left from the original explosion. The original explosion, now why scientists? All of them agree on this. The entire universe was created in a fraction of a time. How small a fraction? Somehow they all agree on this. Mathematically, they've figured out that the universe was created in 1/10,000,000th of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second. That's a decimal followed by 42 zeros and a 1.
There's a comment and a question.
All right, what's the comment?
Einstein, to his credit, when shown the universe was expanding and not a steady state, said he was wrong.
He did. He admitted that he was wrong. And there's a famous picture of him at Mount Palomar Observatory with him and Edwin Hubble. And Hubble's standing there smoking his pipe like this, looking very contented. And Einstein's looking through his telescope. It's probably a set-up picture. But anyway, that's when Einstein said I was wrong. It is not steady state. It is expanding.
And then there's a question.
And the reason he didn't want to admit it was expanding is because that means if the universe is expanding and it's only this big, at some point in time it had to be this big. And that means it's finite. That means in age it's limited, and therefore it had to be created. And Einstein said, if you believe in a God, that's foolish childishness. He didn't want to believe in God. All right, what's the question?
How did they find a way to measure the speed of light?
The way they measured the speed of light was they directed a light beam to the moon, and they were able to bounce it back. And then they took the amount of time it took, divided it by 2, and determined the one-way speed of light to be 186,282 miles per second. That's how they were able to measure the speed of light. And they know the moon to be 238.8 thousand miles away, so they were able to figure it out. In fact, they got it down to the 10,000th of a mile, 186,282.3974 miles per second. So that's pretty close.
How long does it take someone to get to the moon?
To get to the moon, with our spacecraft going at 25,000 miles per hour, it takes 3.5 days.
That's not bad.
Not too bad. If you were traveling the speed of light, it'd take you under 2 seconds. To get to the sun, it would take you 8 minutes, because we're pretty far from the sun. But who wants to go to the sun? This book here, Taking the Quantum Leap. And I went through this thing. I think some of the pages are falling out. Underlined it, you highlighted it, examined it thoroughly. Again, compare that to what an atheist knows. Anybody who doesn't believe in God is an ignoramus. Don't take offense, but if you're watching here online and you don't believe in God, you don't know. Read some of these books. The Astronomy Cafe, 365 questions and answers about astronomy. The Improbable Planet. Now, I won't bore you with all the details, but this is a good book for you to get. There's 200 parameters that allow life to exist on planet Earth. If any one of those 200 things did not exist, we couldn't survive. Did you know that if the moon suddenly disappeared tomorrow, we'd all die? The moon keeps us alive.
The moon controls the floods, the tides.
All that. And the moon keeps the earth tilted at 23.5 degrees. If the moon just disappeared tomorrow, the earth would flip-flop. We couldn't grow agriculture. We'd all starve to death.
Slightest degrees went on burn to death or
Yeah.
freeze to death.
Yeah, if we're at 23.5 degrees, 23.4 or something, but right at 23.5 degrees, if we were tilted a little bit more this way, we'd burn up. If they were a little bit more the other way, we'd freeze to death. If you didn't know better, I'm talking to the atheists now. If you didn't know better, you'd think a designer designed it that way. How many of you have seen the show Ancient Aliens on television? None of you have seen it? Wow, just you. Well, a few years ago, they were saying the way the moon is exactly 400 times smaller than the sun, but it's 400 times closer to the earth. So therefore, we can have a lunar eclipse because the moon is exactly the same size as the sun in the sky. And they said, how did that happen? By accident. They talked about the size and everything, how far away, if the moon was farther or if it was closer, it would mess us up. They said, it couldn't have happened by accident. And I thought, wow, they're beginning to admit the existence of God. You know what they said? That proves that aliens must have made the moon. Aliens, little green men made it, but they still won't acknowledge God. The Improbable Planet. This was written by a famous astronomer, astrophysicist. He wrote a book called The Fingerprint of God. And man, I'm telling you, I could go through this and I could spend hours reading just from that book alone. The Creator and the Cosmos, again, written by the same astrophysicist. The Science of God, again, written by people that are not just religious people now, but scientists. Beyond the Cosmos, the transdimensionality of God. This man is actually an astrophysicist. He's also a Christian. I got a few quotations here. Let's see if I have time to read them real quick. Michael Turner, this was on a PBS special. Now PBS, public broadcasting, they're not Christian at all, but they had something on called The Creation of the Universe, narrated by Timothy Ferris. And here's what the cosmologist Michael Turner had to say, quote, probably the most fundamental question that we can ask about the universe is what got it started? Where did it come from? The moment of creation. That's an interesting term. And that's probably the most difficult thing to answer. The laws of physics that are presently known are probably good enough to take us back to within 10 to the minus 43rd of a second. That's that fraction of a second I told you about, of the Big Bang, on the moment of creation. They call that creation. I suspect that we may always find ourselves in this position, that to go that last tiny fraction of a second, we need to go back behind that. We need some knowledge that we don't have. And so I think it may be a very long time, if ever, before we can answer the question that everyone would like to know: what caused creation? Why don't we say it like this? Who caused creation?
There's a question.
Okay, what's the question?
Big Bang or 6 days? Please explain.
All right, I'll take just a minute to explain that. There were 6 24-hour periods that were where the surface of the earth, the biology of the earth, all the plant life and the animal life were created in 6 days. There is no proof from the Bible that the earth is 6,000 years old, but there is proof from the chronology and the genealogies that Adam was created right at 6,000 years ago. We can't give the exact year. Usher says 4004 BC. I don't think we can be that specific. But that doesn't mean the universe is only 6,000 years, because in verse 2 of Genesis 1, it says the earth was without form and void. It actually says in Hebrew, the earth became without form and void. And so at some point in time, it became that way after Lucifer's rebellion. So the universe could be any number of billions of years old, but Adam was created. The 6 days were 6 literal 24-hour periods, which is very easily proved from Scripture.
I had a theory on that. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. It's sort of a question. It's a theory I had through my own studies, because it come up in the subject about astronomy and how the zodiac signs. I just looked at them and said, I don't look at the stars from my hands, but I looked at the one who created them.
The one who created
But
it, absolutely.
my theory is that 6 days, God said, let there be light. The earth was there, but it was in darkness. Maybe that's the moment the light reached the earth.
Yeah.
And separated the light from the darkness.
And according to what is called the Chalmers gap theory, there was a gap between verse 1 and verse 2, where at some point in time Lucifer rebelled. In the very beginning, maybe that was 100 billion years ago, God made everything, and then the earth became in a mess, and in 1 week God straightened it all out. And then he said, let there be light, so there could be light on the earth. But, I don't worry too much about it, because God will tell us one day. The thing is this: we know there is a God. And when we understand for sure that we know there is a God, it doesn't matter what the devil does to us. My brother lost a custody battle when he was going through a divorce. And he wanted that child. He prayed so hard that God would give him that child, because he didn't think his wife was a fit mother for whatever reason. And she won the custody battle, and he got so mad at God, he became an atheist. God doesn't exist or cease to exist based on what happens in your life. It doesn't matter what happens in your life. You can lose your job, your house burned down, and your best friend deserts you. God still exists. If your best friend walks off and leaves you, that doesn't have anything to do with the existence of God. Stephen Hawking stated that maybe the universe has always existed and had no beginning. That's what he said, because he was an atheist. And yet he did his PhD dissertation on proving that there was a beginning. Alan Sandage was one of the most famous astronomers, and he was Edwin Hubble's student. And he became a believer in God after graduating from Harvard from studying the Big Bang and studying the redshift effects. He said, if there was a creation event, this is what Alan Sandage said, it had to have had a cause, and that was Aquinas' whole question. Thomas Aquinas, the famous theologian, one of the 5 ways he did to God, meaning the way he found God. If you can find the first effect, you have at least come close to the first cause. And if you found the first cause, that to him was God. What do astronomers say? As astronomers, you can't say anything except here is a miracle of what seems almost supernatural, an event which has come to us across the horizon into science through the Big Bang. So scientists don't come out and talk about God, but they'll say, well, it looks like there's a God. It looks like there is. All right. Here's a few quotations I want to read to you. Why is it that scientists don't want to believe in God? Well, one very famous scientist, Aldous Huxley, Aldous Huxley, however you say his name. He made this statement. He said, I had motives for not wanting the world to have a meaning. Because if there's a God, the world has a meaning. We objected to the morality because we, evolutionists, objected to the morality because it interfered with our sexual freedom. They believe in the theory of evolution, not because the fossils prove it, but because it interferes with their sexual freedom. We objected to it. He said, we were justifying ourselves in our political and erotic revolt. The chief reason for being philosophical was that one might be free from prejudices, above all, prejudices of a sexual nature. That's from his book, Ends and Means. That's why they believe in evolution. They don't want to be told by God, you can't do this or you can't do that. From the book, Frontiers of Astronomy, here's another quotation. If we ask why the laws of physics, Newton's laws of physics, we enter into the territory of metaphysics, supernatural. The scientists at all events will not attempt an answer. We must go on to ask why, and they just don't know. Harley Shapley, another of America's foremost astronomers, he made this statement. When it comes to why is the universe there, we're stuck. All we can say is, God only knows, and the information is classified. Science has found the basic hydrogen atom, but who made the hydrogen atom? Science comes up against some things that are unanswerable as yet. I'm out of time, just about, not quite, but I want to share with you just a little bit more. Shapley also made this statement here, talking about the hydrogen atom, that's the simplest. He said, the origin of origins is beyond astronomy. It is perhaps beyond philosophy in the realm of the unknowable. That's from his book, View from a Distant Star. So they admit that the origin of the universe is totally unknowable. Here's another quote from William Bonner's book, The Mystery of the Expanding Universe. What happened before the expansion started? That's before the Big Bang. Our model doesn't tell us. Einstein's equations break down altogether. It is for this reason that some people refer to the start of the expansion as the creation of the universe in some unknown way. Well, I know the way. Do you know the way? God. But scientists say in some unknown way, it is argued the matter of the universe was created at this moment. We need not try to trace history back before this event because the universe and indeed time itself did not exist until the creation event. The last quotation here. This is from the book, The Universe and Dr. Einstein. He said, the universe is like a wound up clock. You wind it up and now it's running down. That's in the old clocks where you had to wind them up. If the universe is running down and nature's processes are proceeding in just one direction, they're going down, the inescapable inference is that everything had a beginning. Somehow in some time, the cosmic processes were started. Most of the clues, moreover, that have been discovered at the inner and outer frontier of scientific cognition, their knowledge, suggest a definite time of creation. Now, folks, this is not a preacher or a theologian saying that the universe was created. These are scientists who are agnostics, who don't want to believe in God, but they're forced to admit the universe was created. And when you and I get discouraged and get down in the dumps, don't become an atheist. That's stupid. Listen, you know I exist because I'm sitting here in front of you. If you lose your job and your house burns down, everything goes wrong for you, does that mean I cease to exist? My existence has nothing to do with what's going on in your life. And believe it or not, if all that happens to you, it has nothing to do with God's existence. God still exists. Here's the question. Well, if God exists, why did he let that happen? Maybe he let it happen because you didn't show up for work on time and your boss terminated you. There could be any number of reasons. Why did I get sick? Well, maybe you didn't eat right. See, it's not that God doesn't exist. It's something you did wrong. Let me finish this quotation here. Even if one acquiesces to the idea of an immortal pulsating universe, the problem of initial origin remains. In other words, even if the universe has always existed, where did it come from? Every theory rests ultimately on the prior assumption that something was already in existence. I know what that something was. It was God. one final quotation from these guys. Here's what one scientist said, George Greenstein, the symbiotic universe, life and mind of the cosmos. Here's what he said. Now, he's not a Christian. He's not a Christian. But listen to what he says. As we survey all the evidence, and we haven't even hardly introduced it, the thought insistently arises that some supernatural agency, or rather agency with a capital A, must be involved. Now, he's not a Christian. Is it possible that suddenly, without intending to, we astronomers, have stumbled upon scientific proof of the existence of a supreme being? Was it God who stepped in and so providentially crafted the cosmos for our benefit? The most famous atheist alive today is Richard Dawkins in England. And he said that the entire universe shows evidence of design, but that's just an accident. And I've got a whole lot more amount of time. Let me read you one verse of scripture. Can't let you go home without this. Here's what the Apostle Paul wrote. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind. If you see all of those stars we showed you, you look at all that, and I've only given you a fraction of the evidence. It would take me weeks. It took me months and months to read through those books over a period of years. I've only given you an hour's worth of information. If you can look at just what I showed you today and then not believe in God, then you're just insane. The reason I say this, let me conclude with this. When we get down and discouraged, if we realize there is a great, fantastic, awesome creator God that created you, that knows everything about you, that even could count the hairs of your head, then he knows what you're going through. He knows the trials you're going through. And God is as close to us in a way as our breath. The Bible says he gives us every breath of air we breathe. That's in the book of Isaiah. So when you go down a trial, and everybody in this room is going to have a trial. If you haven't already, get ready. If you haven't already had one, get ready. You're going to have one. And when you do, you can pray. And you might not know how to pray about that trial. Say, God, I don't know what to ask. I just know I'm in trouble. Help me. Yeah, God knows the trouble. You may not even be able to define the trouble. You may not be able to explain it. I don't know what I'm going through. I just know I'm in a mess. Help me. I've done that. Lord, help me. I didn't know what to pray. Help me. And I just, when I said, take a walk, I said, God, help me. And he did. Because he knew how to help me. But I didn't know how to help myself. So we know there is a God. Get to know this God. Read his word. And since January's coming up, that'd be a good time to start Genesis and read through the whole Bible again. Any final questions?
There's 2 comments.
2 comments. And I've got a whole lot more I could read you if you want to stay here another hour, but I'm not going to ask you to. Don't worry, I won't come back to this next week. But okay, what's the comments?
Thank you for all your background work and explanation of this ultra important topic. It is all very humbling and should make us pause when we approach God as our buddy, but not our great God.
Absolutely. My father was my friend, but he was also my dad. I never once called him by his first name.
It always bothers me when people call God the man upstairs.
Yeah, the man upstairs.
That.
That shows they don't know him. Ronald Reagan was a good man, but when he got shot, somebody asked him about it, and the doctor said, man, if that bullet had been just a little bit closer, it had killed you. And he said, God was on my shoulder. Ronald Reagan apparently didn't really have a close relationship with God because God was not on his shoulder. But that's how he explained it. God was on his shoulder. When you really get to know God, yes, he's your friend. But I won't let a day go by that I don't kneel before my great God and worship him. What's the other comment?
It all comes down to faith. Faith that God has always existed.
Well, you could say it all comes down to faith, but according to science, he must have always existed. How do you explain God never had a beginning? I don't know. But if he did have a beginning, who started him? Who created him? Whoever that would be the ultimate God, wouldn't it? So whoever the ultimate God is, he never had a beginning. And that ultimate God is the one who tells us in here, he's it. He said, I'm God, there is none else, this is it. So the God we worship never had a beginning. One of these days, I'm going to ask him about that. Any other comments? Any questions? Well, thank you all for coming. Good to see all of you again. Good to have our young lady here from New Zealand. She's actually from Concord, but she's been in New Zealand for 2 weeks and didn't fall off the earth. I'm so glad she didn't, because that's at the bottom of the world. All right, we're dismissed. We hope to see all of you again next week. And I can't stay too long. I got to leave here in just a few minutes, but we'll fellowship for a little bit, then I got to run. Oh, by the way, here's the latest Bible truth. Have you already sent this out?
No, we hadn't sent that out.
But you saw it.
Yeah, but you sent it to me in an email with a whole bunch of other stuff, and I didn't even think to send it out.
If she gets time today, she'll try to send this out to you. But I brought just a handful of copies for those of you who don't have. There's a handful of you that like an actual paper copy. The rest of you, you'll get it in your email anyway. Would you like one? Okay.
Yeah, we like one too.
Okay. I brought just